journey I'm going to tell you about is about, first of all, leadership, then community, and then mission, and at the moment, transformation. So that's a new thought for me, but as I speak, I think we're going to move from there to there. And initially too, I wear two hats. One hat is youth pastor, long hauls, Friday night. What the heck do we do with that awesome vision that Murray's been preaching out of the Bible for 40 years? That's the first story. And then secondly, we're developed some things that we're working with other churches and other local settings that hopefully becomes transferable. And so with that hat and this hat, it starts way back there. So leadership, community, mission, and transformation. Here really says a lot, and that's just basically a really individualistic culture where someone sees there's the world and here am I, sort of separate from it, and maybe in other cultures throughout history now, they actually see themselves as part of the world around them. And I think individualism really is like this, and you can see that church has really taken on a view. You know, I do my home group here, maybe my ministry over there. There's a separation of self from the world. And when people were committing, no, I'm not going to take that big job. No, I'm going to delay my OE. They were making decisions like this. Other people were making decisions, okay, I'm here for as long as it suits me. But we would not have grown if people would not have stuck around. And the friendships, when you know that other person's made huge calls, turning down that job in Auckland, that was his dream job, but he knows there's something here that's a greater calling, you know. They'd sell everything for that prized position in that field. I don't think one's better. Somewhere in the middle we were starting to experience. And another story talking of biblical themes, the story of Ruth has been amazing. And I think we need to raise the bar for our young adults, because I think the stability thing is really important. Look at Ruth. She's in the Bible because she said, where you go, I will go. You know, your people will be my people. Where I die, where you die, I will die. And if I'm not at your grave, kick my butt. You know, she was amazing. You know, and I just think, is there something of that story that needs to be implanted into the stories and journeys? Well, I think, come on, we're not going to grow a community. You think you're going to be transforming? Like, come on, you're only here for 2-3 years. So I've sort of used the language, it's a little bit derogatory, but people who stay 1 to 2 years, they surface, the community surface. People who stay 2 to 5, they're visitors. They can really add some punch. They're there at university for a while. Boom. Chris Cairns hits a few sixes. Comes in, gets out on the boundary or whatever. But then you need these people who are called to be builders. And I believe the Lord up and down this country is marking out some people to be community builders. And they are the Roofs. Where you go, I will go. That place there is my place. You know, and they plant themselves for a chapter or a foreseeable future. And you can sense it in my voice, that's the calling on me. And it's a tough call. Everyone's off doing this, but you're left. These other people come in and hit sixes, but you're... So yeah. But you won't build a big score unless you've got a person batting out the innings. And so, particularly, you know, youth has a reputation of being quite fickle. But I've seen young adults and youth pastors there where just step up to the Ruth plate. Where you go, I'll go. And when someone really costs them to stay with you, man, the level of Christian community that exists in there, you know, they're not going to give their lives up cheap. Because that OE was really important to them. That job, that house, those things. So I'm inspired by the generation coming through. They don't want to sell out cheap. They don't want to give their lives cheap. And when there isn't a vision, they will take these other options. Underneath all the programs and strategies, a living, breathing, primordial soup with chemistry and life that can just bubble out of it. You know, it's thick. Because when you're in this sort of space of church, it feels thick. I don't know whether Blue and Nigel were about to plant a church, but they feel the thickness, that bond. You know, there's this, but it's living and it's breathing and it's changing. That is what I believe is church. Right? And on top of that, we can put some structures around it. So, for example, it might look like this one time. But then a couple of years later, it'll look like that. And it just changes and it shapes. And you put some strategies around it. For example, for many years, we were into touch rugby. Oh, we just played touch on a Sunday. We just loved it. It's part of who we were. And then we thought, well, let's make some teams and we'll go into local competition. Then we had 2 teams, 6 teams, 12 teams. Well, let's make up a module. Let's run a module. We had 40 teams playing touch rugby every Thursday for the last 10 years, except for one. because we put this strategy and program, we wanted to interface with the community, common ground. But then, year six or seven, someone said we've got to stop the touch rugby module. I say, what? The council loves us, it's our interface point, it's about who we are, it's so cool, it's so missional. No. And a young fellow of mine said, the light's gone out of it. He says, you watch. So we talked, shut it down. And what people said was, where are we going to play touch? They didn't say, where are we going to interface with the community? And I says, Luke, good move. We shut it down. It's only a scaffolding around what the real stuff is. And you were talking with more St. Paul's. You talked about pretty much the complete different language and experience, but I could really connect with that. So, yes, I'll get back to the missional part. I really love this concept of good. And inside that you've got culture, history, good times, bad times, stories, personalities. It's more than just culture. It's a whole bunch of stuff. Histories, traditions. And I believe that in going missional, we always forget this bit, because it's so much easier to do this bit. I believe the youth pastor, the senior pastor's job, for crying out loud, is to look at this and to cultivate this like a gardener. To cultivate that and to monitor it and to grow it. And I even tell our young leaders coming through, have good glasses. Don't just see it. See the interaction. See what God's doing. How is He hovering over that little bubbling, boiling soup? How is He hovering? And go with it. And it's an ecclesiology that's ecological. So there's life and death cycles. What needs to be chopped off? You know, you don't want a little rose garden that's all groomed. And someone else said it's a bit messy. Well, let it get a bit messy. But things live and they die. And so, as we got missional, I had this in mind. And also, again, as we looked at aiming at the schools, there was other things. So we had to get a strategy that fitted, because we had church parents wanting the church kids, sorted. And then we had these community kids that didn't have anyone wanting anything sorted for them because they didn't have a voice into the church. But they're on their heart. So, come to this strategy. And again, talking to third and fourth formers, wanted to get them onto it. Effectively what we did is took the angle scale. Someone's hot for God, dying places, green. Someone that's not going anywhere with God, or space that's not going anywhere with God, red light. Right? Somewhere in the middle, orange. So we could explain to kids without saying, are you -7 or are you -2 with respect to your relationship to God? We just said, look, red, orange and green. I'm kind of orangey with a bit of red really sometimes on whatever day. So we use this language to describe where people were at spiritually.